working in my dashboard on Twitch real quick. So let's see here. Checking the stream. No, that is not the title of the stream. Okay, animators. Kit. Class. Week. 1. Yeah, there we go. Now it should be the correct tag and everything. If you refresh your browser, you'll see if you're watching on Twitch. Okay, so, all right. Let me get started now. Whoa, what the hell? That should not be. There we go, that's good. All right, it was blocking the chat. Yes, we're gonna have Homer. All right, so welcome to week 1 of my Animator Survival Kit class series. I am Spacedad, and over the next 12 weeks or so, we'll be covering exercises from the Animator Survival Kit. There will be weekly homework. The homework is, of course, optional, but if you want to get feedback and critique, and if you want to digest the content of the book that we're mainly sourcing from, which is the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams, who was, of course, director of animation on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and actually a lot of other stuff, like tons of TV commercials, various like animated shorts and specials and other things. He actually has quite a lot to his name, but the main thing that people know him for is his work on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He had a magnum opus film called that was called Thief and the Cobbler, which we'll actually probably take a little look at. I think it'd be a good idea to kind of for people to kind of learn who Richard Williams is before we get started. But Richard Williams was a guy who it was an American who mainly worked in the UK animation industry and started his own studio and hired like actually several animation masters in order to teach his staff. And he hired like ex-Disney people, including some of the 9 old men, to the masters who pioneered Disney's animation, to work at his studio, along with lots of other Warner Brothers and other veterans and stuff. They did a lot of commercial work, and they were throughout the years. Richard Williams was trying to put together a animated feature film that he wanted to make like this kind of mind-blowing magnum opus experience called The Thief and the Cobbler. Unfortunately, his kind of like ambition outstripped the reality of what he could do at the time. So like the film was eventually kind of like it was left mostly unfinished, and then it was like eventually released in like chopped up forms by studios where he didn't have any control over it. But there's a lot of like really elaborate animation in that, including a tremendous amount of like animated mechanical perspective, linear perspective drawing, which these days would be more handled by the computer, but it was like really time consuming for him to do at the time. So I should probably show a little bit of a taste of some of his stuff, because some of his best work is on Sakugaburo. So I'll bring that up real quick. Richard Williams. Sakugaburo, for those who don't know, is a really cool site. Whoops. Actually, here, let me bring this over here. It's better if I bring this over here. Sakugaburo, for those who don't know, is a really cool site mainly for anime, but there's also a lot of Western animation here for really cool animation scenes and reference and other things. But let's see here. There's a lot of still images. Some of these are from Animator Survival Kit in here, actually. Oh yeah, here's the animated intro to the Animator Survival Kit DVD series. Or part of it, anyway. This isn't the whole thing. But like, they do like a full setup of like the walks, all the different walks that go together on the cover. And that's the GIF that you see in the corner of the screen, on my screen. He and several other animators put this together. Let's see here. Well, there actually should be more than this here. But yeah, I mean, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, oh yeah, apparently James Baxter worked on this scene along with Richard Williams. That's cool. James Baxter is another legendary animator too. We might go into him a little bit. I don't know about today. Yeah. There's a lot. So one of the things about Richard Williams is he was big about animating on ones. Now, ones and twos are, in animation, in a film, there's 24 frames a second. When you animate on ones, that means you're making one new drawing for every frame. As you can see, like every time I click forward here, Baby Herman here moves slightly. Now you kind of need that if you're doing like animated characters in live action scenes, because it needs to match with reality, and reality is moving at 24 frames a second. Now animating on twos, you will see that actually a lot in like really snappy animation. Like animating on twos inherently has like less of a frame budget to it. You have to make less drawings for it. And you can also make it expressive in different ways than ones. Ones tends to be smoother. And Richard Williams was a big fan of doing that, and he was a machine about animating on ones. And that the crazy shit he did in Thief and the Cobbler was like animated on ones a lot. You can see this is animated on ones also. Every single frame is a new drawing here. Just wild. And some of the Thief and the Cobbler stuff is here. Don't know if I can find like the best examples on short notice of what. Yeah, let me look at this. This was not done with any CG. This was a giant monstrous machine that looks like it was done in CG or something, but it's not. But there's some great perspective shots in Thief and the Cobbler, which are worth looking at, which really show off Richard Williams' ambitious chops. I don't know if I can find any right here, but there's like a lot of stuff where the camera... Oh, here's one. This one's just insane. This looks like it was done with computer. It's not. This was all hand-drawn. And this is hardly the only shot like this. There's tons of stuff like this in Thief and the Cobbler. That's crazy, though. So here, I gotta close my window real quick. It's here. So, anyway, so Richard Williams, we'll talk more about him in the future too, so we get to know him a little bit more. But I think we should start getting into the lessons that we're going to be going over today. I need a swig of water actually, so I'll be right back. But yeah, we're going to be going over stuff. So first off, before we get started, as far as animation software goes, I'm okay with you even using 3D animation because I can draw over the 3D to give you suggestions. But let's see here. So the main software you should be using, well, you should just be using any software really. Whatever animation software you're most comfortable with. For those of you who don't have any money and are poor or whatever, there's a couple free software packages that I recommend. One of them is OpenTunes, which is a open source hand-drawn animation software. It's pretty flexible and it's pretty good for what it is, which is free. It's not the best, but it's pretty darn good, and it's getting good all the time. It's getting better lately because more people are using it and donating to it and stuff. The other is, of course, Blender. And I'm going to be using Blender more in the future, but Blender I very strongly recommend. You can also, if you have Steam, you can download it on Steam. It'll auto-update for you too. Blender is completely free, completely open source. There's tons of plugins and support for it, and there's tons of stuff you can use it for. You can also use it for video and sound editing. Blender is mainly a 3D animation software, but it has a 2D animation template using this thing called the grease pencil. The grease pencil is basically a vector-based drawing thing that's actually like drawing lines in vector in 3D. And like if you have like a VR motion controller, you can actually draw 3D sculptures in 3D space with it. But they have a template in Blender that you can use to make just regular 2D animation. You can also use the Blender grease pencil to animate 2D characters in 3D spaces. So kind of like a 3D background version of Who Framed Roger Rabbit animation a little bit. But yeah, it's really, really powerful, and I'm going to be making use of it more because I'm on a game dev team where we're kind of, where I'm a student game dev team being run through our Discord. Wow, that background music is really loud. Here, 1 second. There we go. All right, let me know if there's any problems with the noise or background music or whatever. Is it possible to... No, Grease Pencil is just the Grease Pencil is just a tool within Blender. You just need Blender in order to use it. Maybe I can show it real quick because I've got it on Steam. But so the important thing of the animation software that you have, like, you can also use Krita and other things, and like Procreate. There's last week. There's a video of mine up on YouTube of week 0 of this class where I go over more of like the software tools you can use a bit. I might actually do I'm gonna be doing more with Blender in the future, and I'll do a thing on introducing people to Blender, but just to show people if you are downloading Blender to use it. If you are downloading Blender to use it, what you want is you to go to File, New, 2D Animation. And it creates a 2D animation. It sets up the 2D animation template, and this is This is the Blender grease pencil right here. It's not to be confused with the Maya grease pencil. This thing is more like an actual drawing pencil as opposed to like Maya's grease pencils is kind of a shorthand way to do draw over corrections on your 3D animation. This is powerful enough to do fully hand-drawn cell animation and stuff. Down here is a timeline. You can also use onion skinning on that timeline and stuff like that, but we'll get into this in the future. I might do a separate workshop or something with how to use this once I start learning more how to use it. But you can try using this if you like. You just got to know how to set keyframes and stuff. But yeah. So what I'm using right here is I'm using Toon Boom Harmony. This is a software that I've been professionally trained in. So Harmony has a big learning curve to it, so I don't recommend it necessarily for newbies, but it is kind of an industry standard, so it is worth learning. It's less intuitive than its cousin Storyboard Pro, which is by the same company. Storyboard Pro is way easier to learn. Harmony has like a network node-based thing right here, which is kind of like a pseudo programming language for learning how like stuff works, because this software can be used for like hand-drawn 2D animation or puppet rig based stuff, which is kind of like making 3D puppets, but in 2D basically, like rigged characters and stuff. But here, a film I worked on that won an Oscar last year, which I don't want to play on here because I might get copyright doinked, is the animated short Hair Love, which I was lucky enough to work on last year. Some of my drawings might be in some of these. Oh, I actually have like a signed placard of this little concept art lineup too that they were giving out the crew members at the party. You see if I can spot any of the shots I worked on in here. Why not? But there's several of like the trailer shots, the promo trailer shots where it shows close-ups on like the characters' hands that I drew. Which is kind of flattering, I guess. But anyway, whatever you're using, you want something that you're comfortable with and that you can like freely work in. It's like I'm not a big fan, especially for beginners, of like using like Procreate or something, or even Photoshop, because it isn't as intuitive as a piece of software that's set up specifically for animation with a timeline and onion skinning and stuff. So let me show you what I'm talking about when I mean like onion skinning and timeline. So down here is my animation timeline. That's the frame that I'm currently on right now. And if I turn on this thing called onion skinning, I can see the previous drawing on the previous frame. So that means I can do this. And I can know like this thing that I'm drawing is kind of in the ballpark of my other drawing, like that. And now I can see like where both of them are. So I'm going to use that as a means to kind of place this sort of breakdown animation drawing here. Just quick, I'm just like giving a quick demonstration of how this works. Let me get rid of these. I don't like those. So this is not unlike like a thumbnail pass that you might do on an action or animation or something. And like from here, then I can play with the timing on this. So let's say like this is, put this at about 12 frames or so, like that. This goes for maybe about like 4 frames right here. And let's put this one at another 12 frames-ish or so. And now I'm going to I'm just going to set it to play this part, the timeline for me, so we can watch it, what it looks like in loop. And yeah, there you go. I mean, like, so what you need to get started on your animation is something where you have good control over the timeline. Like, I can stretch out like here and here how many of the frames on the timeline I have visible. And you need something that's not going to be fighting you. You want something that's going to be easy to use. So you're thinking more about animating than you are something that you understand how to use that's pretty easy for you to get into. So you're thinking more about animating and how stuff moves than wrestling with the software. Like I said, Harmony has a pretty big learning curve to it. I may do a class on it in the future, but this is something that is a really tough nut for newcomers to crack. At the very least, like newcomers should be able to like kind of sketch frame by frame in it. But like as far as like rigging and other things go, that's like really advanced. I'm actually going to be using this a little bit and showing off today a little bit of like how pegs work to a minor extent, so that I can animate stuff without having to redraw things. But anyway, so our first lesson of today is we're going to take a peek at the 12 principles of animation. And we'll be mainly focusing, I think, about 4 of them today. But if you Google search for 12 principles of animation, you should come up with a lot of stuff that provides some handy-dandy reference on what the 12 principles of animation are. Some of them might even be animated GIFs, like here's this. This one's pretty fun. So this one is actually a Richard Williams exercise, although this one is using squash and stretch, and we don't necessarily have to for the Richard Williams exercise we're going to use. So squash and stretch. Squashing and stretching is an object will give the character illusion of weight. That's like, you can see that happening on that ball there. It's kind of maintaining its volume, even though it's like squishing out and stuff, and it's stretching out when it goes up, when it's moving quickly and stuff. Timing and they say timing is motion, but it's really timing and spacing. Spacing means like how stuff is spaced out on like how far stuff moves between each drawing, and timing is like where like what the timing is on the timeline, the animation timeline and stuff. So what you're seeing here is like Those are kind of recording where on the timeline it appears each frame and stuff. Don't know if we're going to go into anticipation, but there's going to be slow in and slow out that we'll talk about today, and arcs. But yeah, these are 12 principles of animation: swash and stretch, timing and spacing, anticipation, staging, follow through and overlapping action, straight ahead and pose to pose action, slow in and slow out, arcs, exaggeration, secondary action. I don't think that's the best example of exaggeration, but secondary action, solid drawing. I think they needed to maybe draw a head or something there, but appeal. These are 12 Principles of Animation are mostly from a book called Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Illusion of Life. That is this book, and I do strongly recommend this book. I have a physical copy of it. I actually may be sourcing it some more for some of our classes. It's a book that has a lot of golden information in it. It's a huge book, and I do recommend picking it up. It's one of those books that you'll read in little chunks, and you'll pick up something new every time you do. But it's a fantastic book. It's by two of the big masters of the original Disney animators, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. What's up with this cover? Weird. Anyway. Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Strongly recommended. Definitely pick it up. There's other animation books I can recommend, but we won't go into those today. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be doing a exercise together from Richard Williams' Animated Survival Kit. This exercise concerns timing and spacing. So let me start a new layer here. Doing like quick and dirty harmony use here. I've gotten so sloppy with harmony. I really should like refresh my knowledge of harmony stuff. I've mainly just been using Sketch without bothering to rig or label anything. So let's see here. Oh, hang on, let me turn off the synthwave pup. There we go. All right, so the main lesson that we're looking at right now is this coin lesson right here. Let me see if I can copy paste that into. There we go. See if that copy pastes into the drawing layer. Probably not. Nope. But the page that's on, if you have the Animator Survival Kit, you want to be open to that page right now. What we're going to do is we're going to create a circle, and we're going to do what it says right here, basically. This is a lesson on time. This is an exercise that'll get you warmed up with wrapping your head around the concept of timing and spacing. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's see, we got 25 frames, so that means I'm setting up my timeline for 25 frames right here. So I've got a total, the animation stops at 25, starts at 1. I may actually add some more frames to this when I play it so that we can see it, or before and after it, so we can like kind of register it before it starts moving. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to keep it to 25 frames right here. Let me turn on harmony again. There we go. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create some kind of ellipse like that. And let's see here. I'm going to color that in. I'm just going to throw blue in there. Or actually, it might be better if I left that blank, because then when I see it on the timeline here, I'll just thicken it. I'll thicken the line on it. Let's see. Where's the properties? 2 properties. There we go. Let's maybe put that about 8 thickness. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, so this is our ball that we're going to, or coin that we're going to be using for this exercise. Now, so this thing is essentially like the same object. So I'm copy pasting this in Harmony real quick, because we're going to make 2 of them. In Harmony, like when you're moving objects, you generally will move them by the peg that they're on. It uses a peg-based system that you move stuff by in like kind of a hierarchy. So I created another version of the same object, but I'm moving it by a different peg, and I'm going to bring it down to about here. So instead of overcomplicating things for myself, I'm going to use Richard Williams's timing and spacing thing. And I'm going to import it into Harmony real quick, if it'll let me. So I've had some problems with Harmony not importing the image files I need. If not, I think I can copy paste it into the program. Let's see here. There we go. Oh, no, it worked. Goody. All right, so let's make sure that's back there. Attach that, give it its own peg, and then attach it to the master peg. There we go. All right, so another thing I'm doing here is I'm creating another peg right here so I can resize both of these together while they are going to be moving on their animation pegs. Little miniature Harmony lesson there. So I did that so I can do this to kind of resize these so they're about the same size. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't do that. What I should do is I should resize the background here to be close to those coins, kind of. Those in, yeah. I think that's close enough. All right, so on both of these, we have timelines. And the lesson that's being showed here is the differences that happen in timing and spacing, depending on like how quickly, how like further and shorter apart you place stuff can affect the impression of how it moves. So up above here, we got something that's pretty even time. So let's try how that works real quick. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to frame 13 here. Well, actually, no. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to frame 25. Actually, here I got to extend the visibility of these coins real quick on Harmony. There we go. So I'm going to go to frame 25, grab my peg on this one. Got to turn on the animate guy. And I'm going to move it over here. So this is moving on ones, and it's moving like really even timing. Like, look at that. Because I'm using motion tween right here, it's pretty close to what Richard Williams wrote here, so I don't have to pose it out every single frame. It's a nice little time saver for me. But if you're doing this hand-drawn at home, like you can either push an object along the screen like this, which is kind of the spirit of this coin exercise. I actually did this in animation school with an actual coin that we photographed. But moving across like a photocopied version of this page, basically. But here, this is like a really, really even kind of robotic timing and stuff. It's kind of blah. What I'm going to do here, it's going to be a little bit different. So get frame 13 here. I'm going to grab this peg, because I'm animating by the peg. I'm going to move this guy over here. And then I'm going to go to frame 25 and move this guy over to the endpoint here. Let's see how that looks real quick. So it's not quite right. It's moving pretty evenly, isn't it? So I think like there's a way for me to actually like adjust the curve that goes by, but I'm not going to bother with that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to manually, for this one, I'm just going to manually pose this one out, just to show you how this works when you are manually posing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these little kind of these little kind of markers here to sort of track where like the bottom of the circle is on each of these frames. So, and also we're going to turn on onion skinning see what our previous drawing and preceding drawings look like until we get something that works pretty good. So the first frame only moves very, very slightly. All right, so second frame moves a little more. Actually, I think to make this smoother, I should do this. There. Yeah, third frame moves a little more. Fourth frame moves a little more. It's about here. Yeah. It's moving exponentially more and more on each frame. Like the spacing is increasing on each frame. So 7. I think this is a little bit off here. I think Richard Williams made a little mistake here. Yeah, this should be over here more. It is there. I'm not going to be copying it. I'm actually like I think that some of the placement of these is slightly off, so I'm kind of adjusting them a little bit. I'm kind of eyeballing it. Like these need to be exponentially increasing in width from each other in each of the preceding frames, basically. That's what I'm going for right now. And I think Richard Williams had some of these off a bit, which is kind of odd. I mean, it still looks okay when it's animated, but it is a mistake. That's interesting. I never noticed that before. Yeah, there we got that. Now there is a way for me to mirror what I just did in Harmony, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to go right ahead and do the rest. There's lots of really good shortcut commands that will save you lots of time in Harmony with lots of little simple tasks. And I need to refresh my Harmony knowledge so that I can start using them fluently again. So same deal as the previous. We want the frames exponentially decreasing in the opposite direction. We're trying to create an impression of acceleration here. It shouldn't take too long to do either. I think it overshot it a bit. Let's get to the end point here. It ends up about here. So that means this frame is very slight. That frame is going to be a little bit more this way. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. It's not perfect, but... So now, it's going to create a better impression when I turn off the Richard Williams backdrop here. So you can see the difference. This is what happens when you consider the impact that timing and spacing has on your animation. Now what's happening above is a very, very static timing and stuff. What's happening below is a slow in and slow out of acceleration and deceleration. And depending on how you use your slow in and slow outs and on how you use your timing, there are times when you want even. There are times when what you're animating should be on even timing. There are times when what you're animating should be on slow and slow out. There's times when something might slow in or slow out at one point, and then it might abruptly stop or change direction. It depends what you're animating. These are just tools of understanding and principles that you'll be using extensively in your toolbox. So that exercise out of the way. And we'll move on to the next one, which is about the good old friend, our good old buddy, the bouncing ball. So the page that you want to be open to is the one that looks like this, I believe. And the bouncing ball is like usually one of the first exercises you do when you're warming up in animation or when you're learning animation. We started with the coin exercise. That's actually a good one. That one is actually the one that a lot of animation instructors give people now as their first lesson, because there's less to concern yourself with for it, and you can kind of wrap your head around the idea a little easier. So anyway, let's see here. I'm going to create a ground plane for myself real quick. One of the first things you should do when you make a bouncing ball is you should make a ground plane like that, because that's where your ball is going to bounce. And you need to know where it's going to hit. So the next thing you do is, I'm going to create a new drawing layer. Put that up to the master peg, and this is my ball layer now. So we're going to create a new ball. Let's see here. I got an ellipse tool right there. So this is our ball. I think it's a little big. I'll shrink it a bit. Oh yeah, I'm not playing the screen that I didn't play the screen where the instructions were for the bouncing ball exercise. Let me just show that real quick. But yeah, there's several pages where he talks about the bouncing ball. Bring those up. We're just gonna run over bouncing ball real quick. Like this is where I'm gonna teach you about two things: arcs and squash and stretch. So we just learned about timing and spacing, and you can use that in bouncing balls. Let's say for this one, so for what we want to do with this one is I'm going to introduce you also to the concept of scene planning. So for this little exercise, we could jump right in and just start animating and trying to figure it out, but I'm going to show you what our plan of attack is, and explain why we're making the decisions we're making. Scene preparation and thumbnailing and planning is a very, very important tool in animation. You will often sketch out on thumbnails, for example. Like up here, here's my little thumbnail, what I want to do. Right here. I want my ball to take arcs. I'm going to make a note about I want the ball to stretch out when it accelerates. I want it to squish when it makes contact, but before it makes contact, I want it to stretch out a lot. And then I want it to zip off the ground, maybe with a little blur effect there. So that's a thumbnail note right there for myself in my scene planning about how I want the ball to bounce. And I've guesstimated that the ball should bounce about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 times, something like that. And this is a little kind of quick note for myself about the path I think it's going to travel. So the next thing I'm going to do is I have my ball right here, right? So I'm going to kind of guesstimate about where I think the arcs of the ball. So arcs is another principle of animation. Let's say you have a character I don't know, like Astropug here. This is also from Richard Williams, by the way. And he's got his paw up like this. In Richard Williams' book, they show examples of arcs like this for tracking parts of the body. This is a classic rubber hose animation arc, which you often see in old school Disney animation and stuff. You'll even see it in modern animation too. You'll occasionally see timing charts drawn directly on the page. Those little timing charts are showing you basically what we just saw with the coin, showing us how far apart the drawings are spaced. Now you will often see pretend there's Pretend there's like a Disney animated character here or something. You'll often see in like animation rough drawings and stuff, you'll see those little timing charts on the side of the page. They'll have to make a little note about what stuff is moving and the little frame counters and stuff. Those are the same things as these, but they're included on page as reference for the animators to make where they place the drawings and how far apart they're spaced. And as Richard Williams notes in his book, there's different elements of Astropug here, and the little rat character that he shows in the book that move at different rates and at different timings and stuff. Like, there might be different numbers here, like 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. But then, like, his head might move later, so his head might start moving at like 10, 12, something like that. Whatever. And like, 12, 14, 16. Then you can track all these things separately, and they have their own timings and their own stops and starts and stuff. You'll also see that in animation too, where they'll have like multiple chiming charts and they'll like note what's moving what. There's this thing called the X sheet, which Harmony actually has a template for. I think Blender has something like that too, where like they have like stuff broken up on the X sheet frame by frame, and you can make notes on it and stuff. These are essential for like making dialogue, because you write in here where the action is occurring and stuff, and keep track of it. Keep track of the timing. If you're doing dialogue scenes, you do like the vowel sounds or whatever, writing down here where it occurs on the soundtrack, for example. But yeah, those are examples of scene prep. So we're going to continue with our bouncing ball thing. Yeah, oh, and arcs. Arcs are these puppies right here. In order to get like a smooth action, like you don't want, like say I animated my ball by hand without paying attention to arcs. I might get something where the ball kind of jitters like around like this, and it looks very robotic or mechanical, or it might wind up like moving like just in a straight line like that when I'm supposed to have it like curved like really nicely and organically like a bouncing ball would. That's why you want arcs. It's a good idea to often draw your arcs beforehand, or at least like have an intuitive understanding of what feels like a good arc when you're animating, because that'll make for much smoother action that makes more visual sense and doesn't jitter around and stuff. If you're not keeping track of arcs, let me show you what can happen if you're not keeping track of arcs. Let's see here, Bulgarian Treasure Planet. So some of you might be familiar with the legendarily bad Bulgarian Treasure Planet, but this is what happens when you don't pay attention to arcs. You get really awful jittery. This is actually like this though, because of how like crummy and strange and bizarre it is. I mean, this is like outsider art animation. But yeah, the Bulgarian Treasure Planet, I think you should be able to find it on YouTube. I do strongly recommend watching it because it's kind of a fever dream of weird outsider art animation. But this is an example of what can happen when you kind of really break the rules of animation. I mean, if you're trying to break the rules of animation, then, or the principles of animation, then sure, go for it. But this is just oddball. And I don't think we want to make this kind of stuff, at least not unintentionally. But yeah, so we have an arc here for our bouncing ball. And I'm going to plot some more arcs because this will help me kind of visualize where the ball's going to be going a little bit. I'm going to kind of guesstimate these. These aren't going to be perfect arcs. In the real world, like these arcs would be kind of like perfect curves a little bit. Perfect half and half curves, but that's okay for this kind of little exercise here. I'm just going to kind of draw these out. If you want to, you could use the line tool, for example, in vector-based programs or something, and you could maybe use it to sort of like kind of design a curve like that or something like that for an arc. But personally, I'm a big fan of drawing out your arcs, unless you have some kind of a mechanical reason to do it. Like if I was trying to really go for like a physically accurate simulation of a bouncing ball instead of just kind of intuitively following my drawing instincts here, I might do something like that. So this is going to be going off the page, but that's okay. I can always I can always resize the peg. That's like a really kind of rough marker of like the path the ball is going to travel. And now what I can do is I could either I could hand draw this. It might actually be a good idea for me to hand draw this demo, because like moving the peg around is just gonna be a little bit of a pain if I want to show squash and stretch. Actually, I think I might move it around. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I'll move it around by the peg for this, and then I can, if I want to show squash and stretch, I can draw over what I do. All right, so what we got here is I'm going to use this thing here. Pretend that I'm redrawing this thing instead of moving it around by the peg. But I'm going to show you two principles of animating by keyframes and animating by straight ahead. So for this first drop right here, we're going to be doing a thing called animating by keyframes, or frame by frame. So this is our first frame right here. Roughly about, let me see here. Let me look at what the timing that Richard Williams has. Maybe I can do something like him. So roughly about 11 frames or so. So I should increase the visibility on all this, shouldn't I? There we go. Where's the background? There we go. All right, cool. So let's see. We have our starter frame here. I'm going to mark that actually on my timeline. And then our bounce frame should be at about frame 11, I want to say. Right there. So check this out. Look, when that's straight in between without following any arc, that does what I'm talking about, where when you don't plan your arc and you draw let's pretend I'm drawing this and like I started with these two drawings and stuff without knowing my arc. That would result in me, the assistant animator, making like bad in-betweens that just do this. When in reality, I need to follow that curve. So that means, and not only that, but I need to accelerate and decelerate. So that means, what happens? Well, next frame, it's going to be moving a little bit that way. Next frame, it's going to be moving a little bit more this way, following the arc. Next frame, it's going to be, and we're gonna use onion skinning here. Next frame is going to be moving a little bit further down the arc. Next frame, it's going to be moving a little bit further down the arc. Hopefully we make it to the bottom by frame 11. We'll see. If not, then I'll just adjust. So I'm going to say that the ball kind of hits sort of like a terminal velocity somewhere around here, so it's kind of going to keep falling at the same rate somewhere around here. So maybe like, it no longer accelerates anymore when it hits there. It hits there. That's where it makes contact with the ground. And then the next frame, it's gonna bounce up. It's gonna bounce upwards, a little bit shorter than the previous frame. Oh. I'm making this really fast. But let's see how this looks so far. Yeah, it's a little bit fast. I'm going to add some more frames to it. Maybe about here. So So let's maybe redo these frames a bit. Oops. Deleted those. It made those frames invisible. Okay, let me get those back. Actually, here, let me bring those back real quick. Alright, so yeah, all I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to make these closer together. Make that one a little closer together. Still following the arc. Make that one a little closer. Make that one a little closer. Actually doing a little bit more kind of frame by frame, straight ahead right now. Straight ahead than frame by frame. So the difference between straight ahead and by frame is with straight ahead, you kind of just go right into it instead of like plotting out individual frames and drawing between them. Like here, let me show you. Like a here's how I would like animate a ball straight ahead. I just go straight in and do it. And here's how I would do a frame by frame. Start, midpoint of curve, breakdown, breakdown, then I'd fill out in-betweens in here. In kind of a hierarchy. Like 1, 2, 3, like our midpoint, 4, 5, 6, or 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. So that's frame by frame in a nutshell, where you pre-draw your frames basically and fill in the gaps between them. You pre-draw your key poses and your breakdowns, and you fill in the gaps between them. And straight ahead, where you just go right in and you just animate frame by frame. It's kind of like those stick figure books that you might have animated with like in flip books as a kid or something. The straight ahead animation approach. And straight ahead can give you kind of really smooth, playful results. Frame by frame can give you more deliberate and planned results. There's times to use either or. But yeah, so getting back to this, let's see here. Where's our peg for this? All right, so this needs to be a little closer, I think. That's good. It's pretty fast. I think I'm going to reduce the frame rate, actually, so it goes slower. Get rid of those. Let's put it to about frame 16 or 18 or so. Two, three, four, five, six, 7. This goes about here for our little midpoint of the arc here. pretty good. And let's see here. So I'm going to do a little trick here where I copy paste that over there to kind of get a mirrored arc of the balls travel upwards on the other side here. But here I'm gonna kind of like eyeball the rest. So a couple things to know about this. I'm not making a very perfect bouncing ball right here. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But if you want to take the mathematician's approach to making a bouncing ball, like if you want to be like physically accurate with what you're doing, I'm just kind of like just doing it rough and loose. But if you want to be physically accurate with it, here's what you do. First, you animate a bouncing ball going up and down here, accelerating and decelerating appropriately and stuff. You animate it just going straight up and down, right here. You might even not necessarily put any squash and stretch on it, but you can. Then you apply forward momentum on it. That means that thing is moving through space on its own timeline when it's moving across the screen and decelerating. Means it's going to be moving faster over this way and slower over here as it decelerates, moving horizontally. Now, if you planned out this to do like accelerated bounces in place, decelerating bounces in place, then all you need to do is you need to add just the horizontal motion to that, and then have it moving on those arcs. Then that's why you didn't want to add squash and stretch to this, because then you can go back through and you can have the ball stretch out here. And go back to its original size and stuff, following the arc here. We're going to do a little bit of that right now, actually. First, let's take a look at how this looks so far. Yeah, it's looking a little messed up, actually, because we've spent way more frames on this than this. So let's fix that. Let's see, how many frames do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we have way fewer frames on here. So let's fix that. Starting here, let's stretch out the positions here. Let's say about 4 frames. Now let's just redo it. So keeping in mind what I did above, I'm gonna have the ball move at about like half a ball or so, maybe about here, I want to say. Oops. Let's see, we got to make sure that we hit our marks for this little arc here. After I get done with this, I'm going to do a quick draw over on this to show you how we want to apply squash and stretch to this. Which means that the ball will elongate. When it's accelerating, and when it squishes against the ground, it'll flatten. I'm going to do that hand drawn. I could stretch these out here, but I don't think I will. I think I'm going to run into the same problem here, but we'll see. There's about 3 frames in there. So maybe I should take out some frames of the follow-up. Actually, I think a good way... I'm going to use Richard Williams' guideline real quick because like I'm brain farting all over the place on this bouncing ball. So we're gonna make it touch down at 20. And then 8. 28 will be the peak point of that arc. 26 will be the, or 36 will be the touchdown point of that arc. So that means 15 will be about, let's see, so 15 is going to be about here. And 20 will be where the ball touches down on the ground. That puts 13 at about here. Puts 12 at about, yeah, 12's about there. 14's about, 14's pretty close. It's about here. 15's looking pretty good. 16 about here. 17. 18. 19, that's fine, right there. It's a little bit off the ground. I mean, it's a little bit close to the ground compared to what we probably need it to be, but this will still work. Then let's put 11 there. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, there we go. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's looking a little odd there when it kind of decelerates here. So I think the solution... What's that? So I think the solution to that is I'm going to raise the arc a little bit. So my arc is going to go up a little ways, just a tad. And that means this. This is going to go up here. I'm going to work my way backwards now.
Do we draw along as well?
You can if you want, yeah. I would use the Richard Williams book as reference. He actually works out the timing for you for the bouncing ball. So I'm doing a demo here, but I'm also kind of getting warmed up using my animation software again and stuff. So this is also kind of a warm-up exercise for me. I'm gonna go move to another demo after I get like this to a satisfactory level. Let's see here. So it's starting to look a little better. So we'll just mirror what we did here on the other side. I'm going to use my onion skinning to kind of eyeball it a little bit. I think there's going to be an error when I do this, but we'll see. But let's see how it looks. So yeah, then it's going to continue on like so. Oh, I think I know what's messing it up here. This needs to be... Let's see here. No, that's okay. I'll just keep it that way for now. 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to be an imperfect bouncing ball because I kind of want to just get through this exercise. But I assure you, you can get much better results if you really polish these than what I'm demonstrating here. This is like a starter exercise. So I'm going to power through the rest of this now. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. She should be about here. 5. It's about here. 5. 6, 7. Yeah, the arc looks a little unnatural there to me. So I want to like figure out why that's the case. Like it feels a little kind of weird there. Maybe it's to do with the position here, like that. And I think what might help it is if I did some squash on this, actually. So I'm going to do that. Where's my... Oh, there it is. So I kind of want to move on with this, so I'm going to just show you real quick what I mean by like squash and stretch stuff. So this is squashing right here when it makes contact with the ground. You notice I'm like squishing it and widening it slightly so it maintains its volume. I think I did it on this one. So it's going to squash like more extreme from these high bounces. So that one's really going to flatten out there. There we go. See, that looks better already. That's why it wasn't looking. That's why it was looking a little strange. This last arc right here is looking a little odd. I might have to adjust the positioning of it, and there's some timing issues on this one, but for the most part, it kind of works. But you see, like just adding that little squash there, kind of rescues this little animation here. And another thing that I want to show off that you can do with squashing and stretching is, let's see here. Well, first off, for this, I'm going to show you how to do the stretch on this. So narrow and widen like that. Let's make this really extreme. I'm tilting it and kind of following the arc a bit, and I'm stretching it out further and further as it accelerates more. In relation to its speed. And now this one is where it's going to get really crazy. It's going to go down all the way here, stretch ridiculously high up, and really stretch out right here. Because that's going to create more impact when it hits. So I think I could even start the stretch a little sooner too, like going back here. Let's make that one very, very slight. There we go. And you can do the same thing throughout the rest of it, what I just did there. I do want to move on from this, but this is what I'm talking about with squashing and stretching. Like, when things stretch out like this, usually when they're accelerating or like for any number of reasons of like physical forces acting on an object that you're animating, and then squash, usually when it impacts or something like that, for whatever reason, something would squash when forces are acting against it. They could be gravity when they like jump down and hit the ground. Like here, let me show you. Like this principle of a bouncing ball applies to drawing even characters like this. These are Richard Williams' version of some characters from Preston Blair's cartoon animation book. Preston Blair was a classic Disney animator and also a Tex Avery animator. There's a really good book on animation, which I should show here real quick. Preston Blair. But yeah, Preston Blair's cartoon animation book. Here's the book that you want to pick up for that, right here. But it has like all kinds of stuff like this in it. Like character construction and how to animate certain things and so on. It's pretty good. I would use it in conjunction with like Richard Williams and other stuff. But yeah, so we're gonna move on. I want people to try to execute this as best they can. Execute it. Try to execute it better than I have. Maybe I can show a better example of this from a previous version of this assignment I did, where I had more time to make the arcs nice and smooth and stuff. Here, let me show you. Actually, I've done some of the Richard Williams exercises before, so I can probably fast forward through some of these by showing you examples. Give me a second. I'm digging back through my YouTube archive. Okay, I found them. All right, so here is a timing and spacing exercise I did. This is the next thing I'm going to have you guys do and follow along in the demo. So this is also from Richard Williams's book. And this is showing different spacing and in-betweens for a slow in and slow out on a hand pointing a finger right here. It's a little exercise in applying timing and spacing on a pointing finger, basically. The other thing I'm going to have you do, actually I think this might be the next exercise we do. There is this pendulum exercise, real quick. So it's the same thing, same principle as the bouncing ball, but you have a swinging pendulum like that. So these are in the Animator Survival Kit. I'm kind of debating on whether I should actually do a live demo of these, but it's the same principle as the bouncing ball, where like there is no slow in and slow out on this pendulum here, where it's following an arc right here. This is also following an arc here, but it has slow in and slow out where it decelerates and accelerates. Like so. In Richard Williams's book, these are the pages you're going to be looking for the open and closing hand stuff. So I want you to do these as part of the homework. I want you to do a bouncing ball. I want you to do a pendulum like this. This is, and notice he's saying this is a wrong placement of the in-between. You want to follow the arc of the action like that. And not only that, you don't want to make it even Steven like that. You want to add slow in and slow out like this to make it look like more like a natural pendulum. See some other stuff here. This is what I was talking about right here with stretching out like the frame, exaggerating and stretching out the frame before it makes impact. In fact, we could probably do this one next. Let's do this one live because this one's a pretty easy one to demonstrate really quickly. Oh, and just for fun, here's an old version of the Lincoln penny exercise I did. But yeah, let me see here. I'm going to dig back through and see if there's anything else I did Richard Williams wise that were worth sharing. So I did a bunch of Animator Survival Kit stuff a while ago. I'm just trying to see if there's anything here that I can pull from. Okay, well. One thing I will say is, though, is that like in my action drawing for animators class, in the thumbnail here, you can see me showing off an arc in a planning thing, like inventing posing for a figure character in animation. And I did that same thing during, let's see here, last week's animation class. I think that would be the week 0 right here. This was week 0's class. Yeah, here it is. It's actually open to the GIF that I did last week right there. But I did that using using this kind of guideline here as my starting point that was created using figure drawing. And you notice it follows arcs. It uses slow in and slow out. I'm also using like a loose kind of forced perspective grid and stuff. But like this is an example of like how you apply these sorts of things. Like it's following an arc and a path of action and stuff. And it's using timing and spacing and exaggeration and stuff. But anyway, let's take a look at this. So what we're going to do, I want you guys to, okay, first create a new drawing space. You get rid of this. Let's create a new drawing. The new drawing is going to be the wall. This one, I want you to draw along if you're able to, because it should be pretty easy to do. So this one is just the wall. Now we're gonna create another drawing layer for animation. This will be where the character appears that we're gonna be doing. So this character can be any character you want to draw. You can be like a little quick stick figure. It doesn't matter. We're gonna make just 2 drawings of this character. Actually, no, 3 drawings of this character. So in my case, I'm just going to do like a quick sketch of my little stream mascot, Astropug. I'm not going to do anything hugely fancy, just like a quick kind of thumbnail version of him. Just enough for this. So what I'm going to do with him now is I'm going to do what Richard Williams does in the book. I'm going to have him come in from off screen here. At the starting point in the animation. I'm going to need to make him visible through the whole frame, the whole animation. So he starts over there. And I'm going to have him moving at generally the same rate. There's not going to be any slow in and slow out on his fall like this kind of thing. We're going to give him about 7 frames or so of motion before his impact or whatever. So he starts here. Next frame, about here. Actually, let's have him come in from off frame about here. It doesn't actually matter where he is here, so I'm gonna throw this way off to the side here, because this is where he actually appears on screen. We could maybe turn him off visibility there. Okay, so 1, 2. Then I'm gonna kind of like onion skin it to. He's gonna appear like roughly the same distance every single time here until he hits the wall, and the wall is turned off. I need to make that visible throughout the entire animation here. So here we go. Spot here. So right here is where Astropug will stretch. I'm a big stretchy boy now. He's gonna do what Richard Williams had this kind of coyote character do. This wily coyote looking character do here. He's gonna stretch and he's just gonna kiss the edge of where he's making the impact. And now I'm going to duplicate layer, duplicate drawing, or I could have created an empty drawing. Delete that. And now I'm going to make a Astropod squish, kind of like what Richard Williams made here. His head's his head's gonna be about here. His paw's gonna be down there. His body's gonna be about the same length as it was through the stretch animation, so it's gonna be about this long. His dog leg's gonna be down there. I'm not gonna make like a hugely detailed drawing here. So we just want to see how the motion works. So let's see here. So that's the first version that Richard Williams gave us in the book. No, the first version he gave us was, he didn't stretch this part out, actually. We can actually see what that looks like if we get rid of this frame. Oops. If we get rid of this frame here. And we just make another of these about here. Not very much impact. But we take him and like do what Richard Williams did in the book. And really stretch him out. Here, let me move him. Wasn't letting me move him. It's frustrating. It's not letting me... Alright, Harmony's being a pain in the butt suddenly. I may have to restart Harmony. I'm getting some kind of like, I can't select the thing I'm drawing error, so I'm going to restart. Sorry about that, folks. This may shock you to know that that Toon Boom Harmony has a considerable amount of bugs, and you should save your work very often. Alright, so like I was trying to do, Astropug about here. It's stretched out quite a bit. Let's turn on onion skin again. Don't think, I think I have to maybe do this a bit. Maybe push that over here and put him about here, and I'm gonna turn the anime guy off. There we go. There we go. Now it looks about how I need it to look. Now I can just resize the animation or repeg it a bit so everything comes on screen properly. Like so. So the next thing we're going to be getting into after this is I want to show you examples of the advanced homework assignment that I want the more advanced people in here to try to take on. And the advanced homework assignment is a thing I like to call the ultimate bouncing ball, or the ultra ball, or whatever you want to say for it. But I'm going to show some examples real quick of what I'm talking about with that. So there's a lot of really good web gen animation. If you look around, around the web, you'll find a lot of like WebGen animators who, what WebGen is there's a lot of like amateur animators that started learning how to animate self-teaching in Japan digitally, and did like a lot of crazy stuff like this, um, where they just kind of like played with motion and stuff. And they didn't really care whether or not it was good or bad in some cases, but they did try to like kind of do cool anime-ish shit on their own, kind of like this right here. This is one of Bahi JD's one of his animations, I think. So you can see this like really low res looking stuff, but it's really fun and fluid and playing with stuff. Like Bahi JD today is working on like some of the best anime shows stuff. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is what I want you to do is I want you to do stuff. I want you to experiment with making rad, weird shit like this, not using characters, but just using backgrounds, maybe some effects of like ground cracking, smoke, or whatever you want to do. You can even experiment with weird shit, but I want you to use a ball. Use a simple geometric object. Like here, that's a good example right here in this little GIF that's playing on screen. That's essentially what I want you doing this next week. I want you to play with a ball that's kind of bouncing around through a scene, and do whatever you want with it. You can look at if you need inspiration, just Google images for WebGen animation or Sakuga, WebGen Sakuga or something, and look at stuff like this. And I want you to play with it. And I want you to submit something next week where you play with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I do want you to try to do like the Richard Williams stuff to kind of ground yourself with understanding things from a technical side of things, but I think you need to also play with it. So the more advanced people here, or even beginners here who want to just like go for it and try making something cool, like for example, you could even you could just like jump right in and just like make stuff up as you go along. If you want to do that for this. But but you can also do like scene planning type stuff like this, for example. Like I'm gonna draw like a few panels here. I got my ball here at my starting point. Right here, there's this kind of ground plane. I'm gonna throw like a little few perspective kind of grid lines on it and stuff. If you're doing this, I do recommend using perspective lines. And perspective grids and stuff. So let's see, for this one, I'm kind of like starting with like the ball kind of zipping towards the camera. And upwards. I'm making like a camera move thing saying that like the ground is going to drop off. The ground that we were just looking at is going to drop off. And then it's going to be this little kind of, the camera's going to move, pan upwards to see the little ball way high in the sky. Ball's going to get progressively bigger. There might be kind of like a lens flare that comes off of it or something. And then the ball zooms in full frame, like motion blur lines around it. I'm going to say that this frame is like black. Flash. And crack. The camera cuts to a shot of the ball itself kind of in the ground. Here's the ground plane. Camera shake. Cam shake. And I'm going to do this kind of camera move here. I'm going to make a little markers here for having the camera pull back and away from the ground plane, kind of the 3D ground plane that's below us, following the ball. It's going to be following the ball. The camera's going to be following the ball the whole way down. We will see a kind of like a fake perspective grid sort of following the ball down there. I might throw some clouds in here for fun. The ball vanishes and then there's like a big shock right here. And then we get like an overhead view of like a kind of a mushroom cloud explosion. Like that. Cut down to the underside of the explosion right there. And the slowly expanding mushroom cloud, and the ball kind of drops into frame and bounces and settles about there. So I've got like this kind of really elaborate plan here, including like planning out a camera move and stuff for what I would want to animate for this. So I want you to maybe do something like this before you actually start animating. Like, give yourself a little plan of what you want to do. You can just do it stream of consciousness and just go right in and animate. That's what a lot of WebGen animators did. So I mean, like this you want to do after you try to do the Richard Williams exercises to the best of your ability. If you're kind of a beginner, concentrate, I'd say, on the Richard Williams stuff and getting those right. But here's the exercises I want you doing this week for Richard Williams. I want you doing this, if you haven't done this already, the coin exercise. I want you doing a bouncing ball, and add squash and stretch to the bouncing ball. So where it stretches out, squishes when it makes impact, and then stretches out again as it rises up again. Use the Richard Williams book as a reference point. I want you making the pendulum with slow in and slow out. This one I don't really care about, but this one's optional if you want to do this, like playing with the arcs that he shows on this little mouse character here. Oh yeah, here's another one right here. This one is also another optional exercise. This one is a in-between breakdown exercise. Whoa, hang on. I don't have it on screen, do I? Or do I? One sec. No, I got it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this one is showing off like how to do like a head tilt thing. This one's an optional one. You can do this one optionally. Let me show maybe an advanced version of that if I have the YouTube for it open. I don't think I do right now though. Damn. Oh no, there it is. Back here. I'm gonna make this one optional also. So like the main ones you want to do is like I'm gonna say that like I'm gonna trust that you should do this. Like I don't really care about you submitting this for homework, but the ones you should submit for homework is the bouncing ball, the coyote squish exercise. You should submit that for homework. The pendulum, and the ultimate bouncing ball. So for the ultimate bouncing ball, I first want you making a storyboard kind of like this. But if you feel like you really want to jump right in and just start animating, you can do that too. But you should make a plan for what you want to do before you go into it. And you can alter the plan as you get better ideas, and that's the fun of that's the value of a storyboard. But I want to start people off on like the right foot with utilizing storyboards. So make thumbnail storyboards kind of like this, planning out what you're going to do. Use perspective grids. Freehand. So that means you don't have to make perfect perspective, but use the grids to kind of help you and give you a forced perspective suggestion of what you're drawing. So that means like if you have like a ball here on a plane here, you might have like 2 points of perspective that are kind of suggesting where in space the ball is, and you might have like a idea of where the sky plane is. So that means you kind of know what the ball is going to do. Like say if the ball is bouncing over this way in 3D space, you kind of know where it's kind of what space it's kind of occupying versus like bouncing more towards us this way. And so on. And if it like went serpentine on us, you'd still kind of know, like, here's a ball pulling off like kind of a ninja move right here, where like it zips like on one frame between like these kind of slow in poses, for example. But get in the habit of using perspective grids. If you need help on perspective, I do have a video with introductory perspective on my YouTube. So I'll bring that up for real quick. But let's see here. The video you're looking for with my perspective guide, which is actually just a regurgitation of perspective stuff, is this class right here. Yeah, here we go. Which I taught back in July. But I go over like rules of perspective and stuff if you need help with that. What you want to be doing with your animation is you want to kind of understand these rules a bit if you're doing the advanced assignment, but you want to just use them freely and play with them. If you notice like the WebGen animators, they kind of have like a general idea, sort of how perspective works and stuff, but it's just a suggestion for them playing with stuff. Like you'll see occasionally stuff like indication of the ground plane. You see those speed lines are kind of moving in perspective. You can kind of get a sense that that character was planted a little bit on 3D space a bit. But it's like, it's fast and loose. It's like following a general guideline because the animator, Bahi JD in this case, was just moving as quickly as possible from idea to idea. And this is kind of like, this is not like polished animation by any means. This is like really kind of loose. And it's okay if you make your stuff loose and jittery. I want you to just kind of play with stuff. Just have some fun. if you're doing the ultimate bouncing ball assignment. Just play with stuff. You can throw effects animation in there. You can have the, if you want to, you can turn the bouncing ball into a character and stuff, or at least like put a face on it or something. But the big thing I want you to take away from this for the bouncing ball, aside from like the storyboarding and kind of like just playing with, having fun with animation, is I want you to keep in mind that a lot of times when you're planning animation, you're going to start with like a simple geometric shape moving through space, whether it be like a cube or like a cube, especially if you're handling like really tough perspective animation on characters. You often see like these kind of placeholder cubes or other kinds of shorthand shapes drawn on like perspective grids or something like that the animators will use to sort of like plot in generally the placement and the general movement through space that the figures are going to take. The same thing with like these kind of bouncing ball things. Like if there's like this really big complicated Sakuga scene, you're going to see like a lot of stuff where like the animator will kind of like have the bouncing ball zipping around the plane. And another tip I can give people on that is contrast. Use contrast. That means contrasting your posing. For example, like even on this little bouncing ball, for having to do something super dynamic, let's say like the bouncing ball starts here, it stretches over here and really contrasts, squishes over here, but then it like does something else that's like the opposite of what it just did and stuff. You try to look for opportunities that kind of contrast what came previously and what came after, for like the key moments in the animation and stuff. Another is lead the eye, which means, like for example, like in this little example I gave, like if you notice the path that the animation is taking is generally like following around the page in kind of like a kind of a figure eight pattern a little bit. You can also use like a clockwise or counterclockwise motion and stuff. But you'll see, like if you look at a lot of Sakuga Japanese animation stuff, you will often see like stuff moving around in like a figure eight pattern from corner to corner of the screen. When you see like big complex action scenes and stuff, or like mecha fights in space or stuff like that, you'll see like the subject of the animation kind of moving around in either like a figure eight or like a clockwise or counterclockwise pattern around the stage. And that's to help lead the eye and stuff. So you want to figure out how to lead the eye. You're kind of, when you're making these animations, you're telegraphing information to the viewer, and it's not going to make any visual sense unless you find some way to kind of like to help them track it, basically. So with that said, I'm going to change it over to some critique of people's stuff. Nothing really huge. Nothing really huge, but we're going to take a look at some of the work that people submitted in the homework section on my Discord. And I'm going to see if I can make some comments on it, if there's any opportunity for me to do any critique. So some people, well, I can't play this, but I told people last week to just play with animating a stick figure. Don't care about following any rules. Just try stuff, and that's what people did. So this one is something approaching an attempt to kind of make an arc and a timing and spacing sort of thing. And there is kind of like some issues with it where like he kind of stalls out in the air, and maybe the arcs could be improved. but this is a pretty good start, I'd say. Um, this is actually kind of not too far from what I'm talking about with how you can play with stuff. There's issues with this and so on, but this is the kind of like boldness of like willingness to take risks and play with the medium that you kind of want to do if you're doing like the bouncing ball thing. This is sort of an emulation of one of the GIF things I did last week. There might be some examples in here of, well, here's a demo I did like a couple weeks ago for that melting face. Let's see here. Spaceball Fury's chat probably has my animated GIFs from last week in it. Or not, for some reason. Oh, here they are. Yeah, this is kind of like, this was last week's sort of demo assignment of me doing kind of like a demonstration of just playing with a stick figure. Not really caring if it's good or bad. This was the other demo I showed, which is starting with a plan using figure posing drawing, and then using that as a basis to create this, basically. So that's actually going to be part of my homework this week. I'm going to be either working on this or on the game project that I'm working on, doing something along these lines. So aside from the homework assignments I have for this week of doing the Richard Williams exercises to kind of warm up and the ultimate bouncing ball thing, is I want you to try to animate a little every day. Every day that you're able to. Just try animating a little. And as this says, have at least one shot for me to critique next week. Can be anything, but this is it can. But for this week, it will be any of the Richard Williams exercises I showed off during class, or the ultimate bouncing ball. And of course, get a copy of Animator Survival Kit and start reading and stuff. This was homework from week 0, not too far off. And try thumbnailing and planning before animating an idea. You can use photo pose reference, by the way. Yeah. Try thumbnailing and planning your idea before you do it. And we should have a lot of fun. I'm going to try, like, for my own exercise purposes, tomorrow I may actually try animating this stuff or something along these lines tomorrow, because let me show you what I've been up to lately. What I mainly do on Tuesdays and Thursdays is I'm working on a game dev project with a bunch of other animators and artists and stuff. We've been continually iterating on it. This is like some of the development art I've done for the protagonist character. This is like explorations for a villain right here. There's a kind of quick like run cycle test I was doing with an early iteration of the character in here. There's some sort of stuff in here about like the different moves that we're going to be needing the character to animate into. But what I'm doing with this project is there's going to be in-game animation for this, and this is some corrections one of our team members made, who's got a better grasp of anatomy than I do. That's going to help us raise the bar of the quality of our animation. But what I'm going to be doing this week is I'm either going to be working on the bouncing ball assignment, or I'm going to be roughing out and planning out and animating something to do with this thing, because we're working on a teaser trailer that we're putting together for this that will involve like us really trying to push ourselves into like more kind of like Sakuga Japanese animation, the Japanese style animation, or the storytelling in the teaser trailer. But the project's coming along pretty fun. We've got some good momentum going on it. Here's a but yeah, that's what I'm going to be up to this week. I'm going to try to participate in the ultimate bouncing ball thing, but it really depends. At the very least, like I'm going to use basically this to make some of the scenes I need to do for using that character. Like just planning my scenes using like kind of those little orb sort of things to sort of like plot out the timing and like where the character's moving around the screen and stuff before I like kind of work out the posing or whatever. And that could help you like decide where stuff stretches or where like it changes and so on. So that's where I'm headed with that. So I'd like to open things up to questions right now. Really happy with some of the submissions people made for this week. I didn't really get into very much feedback because like I kind of feel like I'm just happy with the fact that you guys played with stuff. Whereas like next week I can give much more in-depth feedback on specifics relating to the assignments and suggestions of how to push things. But you guys more or less did what I wanted you to do. The people who did do this for week 0 in warming up. So in future sessions, we're going to be going way more in depth on critique. To wrap things up, I would like to field questions either from voice chat in Discord or from, let's see, class chat. Where's class chat? From class chat here. Yeah, ultimate bouncing ball. I'll actually. The other thing is, if you want to join my class section, so you can post the homework and stuff and share it. So this homework section right here, you're supposed to share the homework, and you can also you can also offer each other feedback on each other's homework in here. But the way you join the Spaceball Fury section here, so you can stay up to date on stuff with my group, is you go to the opt-in channels section in our Discord, and you go to the enter your command section, and you type !Spaceball Furies, and that'll give you access to my class section. There's also a lot of other people who teach classes here. I recommend Soulcora's. I think Soulcora has a class section. I don't know, but she teaches on Fridays, and she's a really awesome artist. If you want to find out what classes are currently running in our Discord, that's up in the class schedule. You can see mine here. I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5:30 p.m. Wednesday this week we'll be doing gesture drawing for animators. So if you need some help loosening up and like learning how to do figures and learning how to do like figures for animation, Wednesday and Friday. This is actually kind of a misnomer. I should rename that. But I'm focusing on figure drawing for animators on my Wednesday and Friday class. So there's a lot of like kind of gesture drawing. There's a lot of like pushing motion and like forces working and acting acting against each other, and a lot of like inventing poses to like create animated sequences and stuff, which is sort of like what I did in that one GIF that I showed you, where I actually used a draw over I did over someone else's classwork from my Wednesday or Friday class, and I created a plan to animate, which was this guy right here. Let's see here. This guy. That started with like somewhere in the middle here, like about towards the end there, was like the actual pose that I used as a draw over thing, and like then I planned out the rest of this, except for the little bit at the end. I sort of added that in, but I made notes about what I wanted to do with it, and I created some posing, and I like added some arcs and threw in a little bit of a quickie freehand perspective grid and stuff. But yeah, as for the bouncing ball, how long the ultimate bouncing ball is. Well, I mean, look at this. You can do whatever. You can make it whatever length you want. Just play with it, and I'm fully expecting parts of it to work better than others, because I want you to get used to the idea of playing with stuff. Just like mess. I want you to like fuck around and mess up. I want you to experiment. So, like I said, if you need inspiration, look for WebGen animation or WebGen Sakuga. Look for GIFs like that. Or there's stuff on YouTube also for that. Look at that. Some of this can get really, really advanced. Don't be intimidated by it. Just like look for stuff kind of in the really kind of loose, rough vein. Yeah, I mean you want to try to aim to animate like better than this because this is really kind of loose, but this is still really kind of what I want you playing with. So I want you to kind of just fuck around and have fun with stuff. Like you can, if you see cool ideas that you want to try emulating in these, feel free to go for them. Make your own version of some of what's going on in here. For example, using the bouncing balls, you can turn the bouncing ball into a stick figure and play with it. But mainly use the bouncing ball. Mainly use a bouncing ball. To keep it simple for yourself. But if you really want to like use characters and figures and stuff, you can go for it. The name of the game is a mix of Richard Williams Animator Survival Kit technical stuff and understanding. I want you to go through the book and read the text and understand what he's talking about. And then I want you to play intuitively with those ideas. Like you can storyboard out crazy stuff like this, or you can just jump right in and try making them yourself. Just drawing to drawing and just going nuts with it. I want to get people both studying and playing with animation in this class. So, if anyone has any questions, let's see here. All right, does anyone have any questions right now? Anyone in voice chat or anyone in Discord or Twitch? Ask them now, because I'm going to be closing off the stream pretty soon. I'm actually thinking in the future, in conjunction with this class on Monday, we might do some timed figure posing too. Like we might do some of that even before the class to get warmed up a bit. But we'll see. Hello.
I do have a question. Do
Yeah.
we need these? Do we need the homework exercises to be all in one video, or do they need to be
Separate videos, ideally.
all separate videos? Do
Yeah.
you have a preference?
Let's see. I think MP4 or .move. I forget which. Whichever one. Let me see which one I can import into Harmony real quick. Because Harmony would probably be mainly where. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I can import. So MP4 or .move. MP4 or .move should work. But make sure it's those, because then I can import them and I can do draw over demos, and then I can export them and give them to people. But yeah, I mean, like, if you need, like,
Thank you.
So the you can do any of these for your exercise that I've shown you here, the bouncing ball. But I do want you to do at least one bouncing ball. But you can do the head turn breakdown thing right here that shows off different ways to like handle the head turn stuff. You can do this kind of arm joint thing that he's talking about here. You can do any of them here and submit them. Although I don't really care about the coin test too much, because I'm kind of gonna assume that you can just kind of get the gist of it by doing it at least once. But you can submit any of the stuff on this page, like from the first section of the Richard Williams book. That's in this vein. And then there's the optional ultimate bouncing ball, where you just play with stuff. That's on you if you really want to push yourself doing that.
Hi. Are these due on Wednesday?
These will be due before class next Monday.
Oh, okay.
So you have a whole week to work on them. Let me see if there's any other questions people have. So yeah, one thing I'm going to be trying to get up. So this class is not just a class for me teaching you. It's also a class for me learning and being taught myself. I'm going to be learning from other animators over the course of this. I might have some guest people in here who might be able to talk about stuff with me. There are going to be, I'm going to be doing a lot of the exercises that I show you. Sometimes some of the demos that I do are also a little bit of exercises for me. Like for today, for example, like I haven't been animating. Shame, I haven't been animating this last weekend, so I kind of came into this blind. So I even stumbled a little bit when I was doing my bouncing ball because like my animator brain hadn't quite turned on yet. But I want to steer all of us, and myself included, in the direction of animating a little bit every day and not being afraid to play with the medium. And I want to like continually build on like the stuff that Richard Williams has, and then combine it with contemporary animation stuff. And we'll just continually evolve things as we go. Next week I'll be doing critique mainly to start, and I'll be giving people a starting point in basic character walks. I think that's what the next step is going to be. It depends. I'm gonna kind of like check what the curriculum order is that I have set up for this. For that, either next week or the week after, we're going to get into character walks. We're going to spend 1 week on the character walks, and unlike the last time I tried teaching character walks where we spent way too long on it, we're going to try to keep it to at least 1 week, and we're going to keep moving on through the Richard Williams exercises and stuff. You're like an actual teacher. Yeah, well, I mean, that's what this is. But yeah, so unless anyone has any last-minute questions, I'm going to do a quick plug for supporting the stream. If you like the classes, you want to support the stream and support the class to keep them going, you can go to my Patreon, which is below, which I'll be uploading class demos and other things too. You can sign up for $1 or $5 on my Patreon to support the stream. You can also, here, let me show you actually. Let's see, Patreon. I'll do my plugs right now before I sign out for the evening. So here's my Patreon right here. I need to update again. Yeah, there was a mock-up sketch of like the character that we were developing. Yeah, like I've got stuff like this here of like class demo files, like from my figure drawing for animation class. My animator figure drawing stuff that I did a couple weeks ago. There's a bunch of more stuff I need to put up here now too. But yeah, you can support me with $1 or $5 pledge here. You can also support me on Twitch if you have a Twitch Prime sub you haven't spent, or if you just want to sub normally or send me bits that way, that can help me there. I also have, if you want to support me directly, my Ko-fi page right here, which I'm working towards a $2,500 goal of a flexible class budget that'll help me like get different like hardware, software tools, and other things that I need to upgrade my ability to teach classes here. So you can support me at $3 or more, any amount here, and that goes directly to my PayPal account. So yeah, those are all the ways to support the stream. I'm going to be signing out very shortly. Does anyone have any super last minute questions right now? And you're welcome. Namiri Avalo 523 for who said that thank you Spacedad, your class is really motivating. Yeah, I'm glad that you like it. These classes are also a study group for me, basically. Like we're gonna be learning together and practicing together. This will help me break off my animator rusties and engage with what I'm trying to do in my game dev project with the other animators and stuff. So it should be pretty fun. Alright, I'm just going to do one last minute check of Discord. Looks like we're pretty good. No one's got any more questions, so thank you all for coming. We will be meeting again on Wednesday for our figure drawing for animators class. And I do strongly recommend attending that because that one's going to be a good art workout, good solid art workout. We'll get lots of good drawing in. So, congratulations. Whoops, that is not the right. That's not the right thing. There we go. Double screen there.